People have been skiing in Scotland for a long time, longer than you might think. True, we haven't been skiing as long as the Scandinavians. They beat us to it by about 8,000 years. But still, skiing is a sport with a long, proud history here. Once we figured out how to do it, we took it to our hearts, and we've never looked back. Every now and then, though, perhaps we should. Scotland's first ski resort was built in Glencoe in the 1950s. But before that, before there were ski resorts, back when skis were just big old planks of wood, people were already skiing, and skiing in their hundreds. Young and old, rich and poor, skillful and not so skillful, people skied wherever there was snow. People skied near Braemar and in the northern Cairngorms. And people skied in Perthshire, on the slopes of a hill called BEINN GHLAS. Myrtle Simpson is the author of Ski-sters, the history of Scottish skiing.
Of course, it was really what we would call these days ski touring. There were no lifts or anything. So they'd either slog up carrying their skis, but they usually made skins out of, you had to get seal skins.
Roman Mingus is the owner of Mains of Taymouth country estate near BEINN GHLAS.
But Glen was well known for mountaineers and the hill climbers and pioneers really in the Scottish mountain scene. I think I must have been 3 or 4 years old, and I remember it was a beautiful, gorgeous, sunny blue sky day like today, lots of snow, and it must have been the 60s. They had the woolly jerseys on, tight trousers and big boots, and it just all looked so glamorous. It was fantastic.
By the 1930s, BEINN GHLAS had become the centre of the Scottish skiing universe. Every weekend through the winter, hundreds of people would travel here with their skis. The slopes just got busier and busier. Things got so crowded that adverts started appearing in the national press asking people to go and ski elsewhere. But then, in the 1950s, purpose-built ski resorts started to open further north and people began to drift away. BEINN GHLAS seemed to have had its day. But had it? In the last few years, there's been an explosion in the popularity of backcountry skiing, and BEINN GHLAS has become a playground for a whole new generation of Scottish skiers. Stuart Johnston is one of Scotland's leading mountaineering instructors.
There's no question about it. There's definitely been a resurgence in off-piste skiing in Scotland as a whole. And when people research it, they think, well, where are all the best places to go? And what they tend to do from that research is think Ben Lawers. It's got some of the best off-piste skiing in Northern Europe. It is world class, and particularly when you get days like this. People are thinking, what's next for me? I've been on the resort, I'm desperate to get off-piste, and definitely more people are now buying the right equipment to go off-piste and are going off-piste, and it's fantastic for Scotland.
In the spring of 2013, a group of skiers calling themselves the Mountain Goats set up camp at BEINN GHLAS and set out to ski some of its historic lines. This is their story, and the story of the people who skied there before them. The first slalom race ever to take place in Scotland was held on the west-facing slopes of BEINN GHLAS on the 10th and 11th of March 1934. Organised by the Scottish Ski Club, it was dubbed the Killin Slalom Race, after the nearby town of the same name. Competitors had 2 time runs each. Patricia Rayburn ran out the overall winner, completing her first run in 20.6 seconds and her second run in 28 seconds. The crew's first objective was to revisit the scene of Patricia Rayburn's triumph. According to the Scottish Ski Club report, in March 1934, the snow on the west side of BEINN GHLAS was
perfectly good, rather slow, and quite easy.
And almost 80 years later, the Mountain Goats were very happy to discover the snow here was still perfectly good. couple of years after the Kiln Slalom, BEINN GHLAS played host to Scotland's first straight downhill race. The Scottish Kandahar race of 1936, named after the Continental Ski Club of the same name, whose members had donated a trophy, was held on the steeper south side of the mountain. The course began on the summit and descended about 1,250 vertical feet. It was a challenging run, a lot more challenging than many of the competitors would have liked. A race report was sent to the editor of the Scottish Ski Club Journal with the following note.
I enclose herewith the official report of the Scottish Kandahar race, for which you asked, but it is impersonal and does not give you any idea of the absolute horror with which I, and no doubt many of the other competitors, viewed the little string of flags which marked the course down what is, to all intents and purposes, a precipice.
The competition was won by D.G. Drakeford in a time of 1 minute 6 seconds. A pretty decent time when you consider he was racing in thick fog. The visibility wasn't great when the mountain goats visited this part of the mountain either. But as they weren't using heavy wooden skis and basic leather bindings, they didn't find it as much of an ordeal. With the basic heavy equipment available in the 1930s, it was difficult to ski on steep terrain, and often hard work just getting up the hill. But modern, lightweight ski touring gear has changed all that. Mountains that would have been out of reach for all but the most determined skiers are now easy to get to. And runs that would have been considered a serious challenge in the 30s now seem less like suicide and more like fun. BEINN GHLAS is just one of 7 Munros in the Ben Lors range, and all these hills offer great skiing when the conditions are right. One that the goats particularly enjoyed was Míl Coránach, which has a wide 35-degree gully on its southeast face. There used to be a small hut near the bottom of Míl Coránach, owned by the Scottish Ski Club, a welcome refuge whenever the weather closed in. The hut is long gone. It fell into disrepair and was eventually demolished in 1999. But the story of skiing on BEINN GHLAS isn't over. In a way, it's only just begun.